Hello, hello. Um, okay. Give me a minute here. Okay, guys. Welcome to today's stream. It's one of our Friday hangouts, but today is the final hangout of the year. Which is kind of cool because I actually really didn't plan to, you know, um, stream for that long. Um, yeah. But anyway, uh, we're finally on our very last hangout of the year. So um this today's stream is mostly just to talk about it's just to wrap up the year basically. Just talk about all of the crazy stuff we've done, features we've missed, our favorite features, stuff like that. So yeah, let's just get into it. Uh Along the way, if you have any comments or anything, you can just put them down in the comments and I'll read them. Um, yeah, so let's proceed. Okay. Where do we even start from? That's actually yeah. I think a good place to start from would be here. Because those who have been following Leaf for a while kind of know um Leaf was on break for a while. I think from last year, from the end of last year. Um, and nothing really happened until August. Yeah. So from August, I sort of started working on Leaf full time, and we also got a new team member, Abdul, also in August. So Abdul has been a really big help, especially on the Leaf MVC part. Um, he has some really popular projects with Leaf MVC. So if you ever stuck with Leaf MVC, these are like really good real world projects to check out. Um, yeah. So Abdul has actually helped a lot with Leaf MVC, and some of the problems we've noticed with Leaf MVC have either already been fixed or are being fixed in Leaf MVC 4. Um, but yeah, having Abdul actually helped, and then a bunch of guys from Discord, Milos, Desmond, Mickey Darkness, and um, Rom, and a few other guys. So yeah, actually a lot has happened since August. Um, but yeah, so this was pretty much the first article we wrote after Leave sort of resumed. Um, and we set a few goals. So now actually be a good time to see if we actually hit everything that we said we would. So I guess closing out remaining issues. Most of them have been closed. We got a bunch of new ones that have also been closed as well. There are a few more hanging ones. Some are being fixed to Leaf MVC4. Um, Others are front end stuff like Vite, which are also being worked on. But pretty much all of the issues from the whole year, like this whole board that you see were like so many to do. I think there were like 80 issues, if I remember right. Um, yeah, and most of those have been closed out. Um, Let me see. Beyond that, sorry. So beyond that, we also worked on the developer experience for some of our modules like authentication, and a few more. I guess we can kind of check this as done. Yeah. Um, I think the major thing here was to kind of get a lot of our modules to work together, and we actually did. Like, we've done a much better job getting our modules to work together. There are still a few ones like Auth and CSRF still fighting each other. But that's also um being worked on. Um, I think a pretty good solution for that is to sort of separate sessions into their own thing. So instead of having authentication or CSRF manage a session, we just sort of let sessions do its own thing and then the others fall in line. But I think that's the only major thing I can think of where our modules don't really work together well. Besides that, I think we've done a good job with the others. Documentation overhaul, yeah, this was a really big annoyance. um, it was really worth it, but most of you know documentation is probably like one of the things I hate the most. Um, it actually even takes way more time than building whatever I'm building. So, um, yeah. So in August, we said we're going to rewrite the entire documentation, and we have. So what you see at leafphp.dev is uh current documentation. The previous one is at v3.leafphp.dev, and I think the major change here the major change here was before documentation used to read like some kind of manual. Um, like we take a function and tell you everything about the function. It was sort of like an API reference instead of a documentation. But then the new one is a lot more readable, stuff like that. Sorry, I think I don't know if like there's some construction going on quite close to me. I actually really hope you can't hear any of that. Yeah, so this actually reads a lot better. We add a lot more examples, even though there are still a few more we can add. Um, yeah, so this actually reads a lot better. We have more examples. We did a much better job merging the Leaf MVC documentation with the actual Leaf documentation. So yeah, it's just a much better experience with the new documentation compared to the old one. So yeah, I guess we can also check that off. Can check that off the box too. Um, New learning resources. I started recording some screencasts. Um, Editing has been pretty annoying, so I've not been able to get those out. But yeah, we actually have more learning resources available now. Once I'm able to publish more of the screencasts, there'll be a lot more videos around in case you don't want to read the documentation. The sandbox is also up, meaning the tutorial is also working again. I don't actually don't remember. I think it's at leafphp.dev. There should be a tutorial. Yeah. So this is also active once again. So you can sort of just follow this little thing here to learn the very basics of Leaf, like HTTP stuff. And if you get stuck, you can always just kind of review, answer, and then stuff like that happen. So you can run Leaf directly inside your browser, go to this tutorial and stuff like that. It's in 15 parts. Um, Included stuff like database, core. So Hangouts are every Friday, um, every single Friday. And then reports were supposed to be monthly, I think, but then we never really kept up with them. I think we did September, October, didn't publish in November. So there's still December. Right. Okay. Finances, I guess we'll talk about that a bit later. We'll talk about that in more detail later. I'm just going to skip over that. But then I personally think Hangouts have been pretty cool. I don't know about you guys. Okay. So that's Hangouts and reports. This was one of those reports. What even happened in September? So September, we had a RFC to merge the Leaf router into Leaf. I think I mentioned this. And oh, I said a 2x performance was actually a 5x performance. Huh, that's crazy. Okay. Yeah, that's actually insane. Um, yeah, so that happened. So now the Leaf router repo is it's actually some Leaf's router inside your application without carrying all of Leaf. Um, but yeah, Leaf no longer runs on this anymore. Like all of the router stuff have been moved back into Leaf itself. Pretty much it. So yeah, that means you actually can't use this. So if you want to use Leaf router without Leaf, you can't use functional mode. You have to go this route. Um, I guess that's fine if you want to do so. Um, yeah, so that's about the Leaf router stuff. I've already talked about this, so I'll just sort of skip it. Um, Updated documentation, yeah, we've done that. We've actually talked about that. And then we had new contributors. Actually, there were like 4 or 5 releases in September that I had no part in. Um, there was just external contributors and Abdul. So that was actually pretty cool. Um, yeah, that was really, really cool. So September was great. Once again, we'll talk about finances later. And then in November, I started working heavily on Leaf MVC. Um, right. So Leaf MVC is basically just Leaf. The Leaf, should I call it a micro framework? With a few wrappers around it, like the folder structure, MVC core, and then the console around Leaf itself. So it gives the structure and obviously the MVC part itself. Um, yeah, so I started using Leaf MVC heavily. Abdul also, and there were a couple of things we noticed that needed to be simplified. Um, and that's where we started looking at things like this. So if you've not read this article, you can actually check it out. This talks about how we could sort of uncomplicate Leaf MVC. So we talk about the MVC pattern, the problem with that, and then what people say, how we thought we could simplify it, and then stuff like. And then after that, that kind of led to Leaf MVC 4. So the plan was to create a minor version of Leaf MVC 4. That was, I think, version 3.8. That would have like all of the new cool stuff that we mentioned. But that sort of changed and became Leaf MVC 4. So this article also like details all of our train of thoughts and all of that. So if you've not already heard about it, Leaf MVC 4 is a really super lightweight, or will be a super lightweight MVC framework. Um, with the current version of Leaf MVC, we've sort of relied on too many Symfony and Laravel stuff. Like we kind of directly copied their ways of doing things. And that was never the point of Leaf MVC. So we are kind of changing the starting with the directory structure, but then there's a lot more. So you can actually check it out on the v4.x branch. So this is what it will look like. You can already see it super stripped down. And then it doesn't ship with our config, storage, and a bunch of other folders. And on top of that, there are also schema files, which simplify your whole database operations. I already talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so you can check the Hangout. Yeah, but basically that's the idea with Leaf MVC 4. Um, yeah, but then there are so many performance improvements, so many usability enhancements, and then we're actually adding all of them. Funny enough, so it's kind of like every time I add something new to Leaf MVC 4, I end up writing a backwards compatible version of that same feature. and all of those are going back into Leaf MVC 3. So version 3.8 had the lean folder structure, and then some new console commands, which were all meant for version 4. Um, Leaf MVC 3.9, which will be released either tomorrow or next week. That's also coming with some new features that are only meant for Leaf MVC 4. So by the time Leaf MVC 4 is actually released, you would probably have seen everything new except the new view engine layer and then schema files. So those are the only things that are not compatible with version 3 of Leaf MVC. But besides that, I'm sort of making everything backwards compatible. So you can literally just migrate from version 3 to version 4 with one command. At least that's the idea. So yeah. So migrating would be pretty smooth. And if you have any questions, we kind of answered a lot of those questions here. So the goal for Leaf MVC 4 is just to make Leaf MVC more minimal, faster, more performant, simpler to use, easier for everybody, including beginners, especially beginners actually. And then we'll have more opt-in features instead of like the opt-out thing we were doing before, console updates. So a lot of things are actually um, going to, I wouldn't say change because they'll also be available in version 3 and they don't really break anything. They are mostly just DX enhancements, so developer experience enhancements and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, this is still in the works, but it's been something really fun to work on. And then a lot of fixes have come out of this as well. Um, I think there were a bunch of releases on Allo and MVC4 for version 3 just last week. So there was a new release last week that kind of had some of these fixes. So yeah, we're actually making a lot of progress. I think, as I said before, we've done 90% of what we set out to do this year, which was actually just this quarter. So I mean, our whole year for Leaf was just this quarter from September till now. Um, yeah, this was December 19th. We released Leaf Auth with roles and permissions. So actually, before this, we had a version 3.0 release for Leaf Auth, which was a complete rewrite of Leaf authentication. It came with a bunch of new features like a completely new user object and all of that stuff. And version 3 finally had the roles and permissions feature. But then it's completely different from version 2. Um, this is just way better, way faster, easier to use, and all of that. And then, of course, you can also use it outside of Leaf. So, yeah, when you're using it with Leaf, you get a lot of features like middleware and all of those, which are not available if you're using it outside of Leaf. But the main library itself just works the same. So, yeah. Um, okay. I think this was our last published article. So yeah, that's been pretty much the year for Leaf MV for Leaf actually, not Leaf MVC, for all of Leaf. Um, yeah, these past 4 months have been quite solid. The and then community wise, oh, I didn't talk about community. So we've been going a bit more community heavy, and that's why we actually even introduced Hangouts and reports. Um, So obviously we are building for you and we need to know the kinds of stuff we are actually building with Leaf and Leaf MVC. Um, so yeah, hearing from you, creating that kind of feedback loop, that's been super important for us. And that's why we decided to go heavy on the whole community stuff. So Hangouts, reports, Discord, which you can always hit me up on, by the way. If you have any questions or any stuff like that, you can always hit me up on Discord, and I reply whenever I see them. Um, yeah, so stuff like that have been going on, and then also GitHub. I mean, you can always open up a GitHub issue. I usually check through, but then I, of course, miss some of the issues. Um, but if it's something urgent, you can always just tag me at is that an issue? Yeah, something like this. You can always just tag me at Michi Darko, and I would always see this in my mail, or GitHub will actually send me a notification directly. So yeah, we're always available to help you guys. And if you have any questions, you can always just hit us up anywhere, especially on Discord. Um, yeah, so we've actually been a lot more responsive, added a lot of features, a lot more releases. There have been so many new contributors. Um, yeah, a lot has happened. A lot has actually happened, and yeah, we're really grateful for all of that. We're extremely grateful for all of that. I think our release in September for Leaf itself was probably, was it this one? I think it was this one, 3.8. No, that wasn't 3.8. That was probably 3.6. Yeah. So this particular release here brought up Leaf's performance by I think 2x. And then we removed a bunch of things that were causing problems, which was this Leaf plus View plus. But then apparently that also had references to other places, so we had to um, have further releases. But then the really cool thing is, as we've come along here, the performance and simplicity developer experience has just gotten better and better. Um, and we actually hope to make it a lot better than what you guys have seen so far. Um, yeah. So besides these stuff, besides like all of the code stuff, I tried recording some videos for YouTube. I actually don't know if you guys saw them. Um, we had There were supposed to be screencast videos. So I got a few of them up. But as I mentioned, editing videos is kind of annoying. So I haven't been able to publish any more since these guys here. But then I have a few more recordings that should be up very soon. Um, yeah. So as I mentioned, you'd have more YouTube videos. And then we're actually going to link the YouTube videos to the documentation. So on some pages, for instance, CLI, you would have a video here that actually talks about the CLI itself. So yeah, instead of going through reading the whole documentation, you can just click on the button to watch the video, and that would be much easier. That would be like a much better experience for you if you are a video guy. Um, yeah, there are some people prefer to read, others prefer to watch videos. So both would be available to everyone pretty soon. Um, yeah, okay, yeah. So I think besides these guys, um, I don't know if there's any. I think there are a few modules, but I haven't yet really gotten time to actually work on them. So besides the stuff you guys usually see, there are a few more like the Q library. Um, I think yeah, this is supposed to help integrating with Swole, and then there are a few more like React PHP, which I never actually finished. There's this for event-driven states and a lot more. So there are actually a lot more modules available which haven't yet been completed, which is why you never actually see them. I don't think they're even actually on the documentation yet. Um, yeah. So next year, I'm actually looking to work on these and then get them finally published. Um, yeah, so there are actually a lot of really cool stuff that would be popping up. I think I'll talk more about that later. And then feature requests. Once Leaf MVC 4 is done, I think there'll be a lot more bandwidth to actually look at some of these, um, like this one, named routes in resources, and then the DB stuff, like having multiple databases on Leaf DB. OAuth2 support is something I was actually looking at, but yeah, as I mentioned, there wasn't enough bandwidth for stuff like that. So yeah, so there's actually a lot of stuff left to do. And as soon as there's enough bandwidth, we'll be able to pick some of these up. So that's actually pretty cool. Um, okay. Um, yeah. So I think, as I said, we have. Oops, sorry. Oh, by the way, there was actually didn't prepare the statistics before this. I probably should have, but then I had a lot of errands to run today. Um, but then we got besides September, where we had a lot of um new contributors, we also had the most number of downloads for Leaf in November in a month. That was just last month. And then a few more cool stats. So I guess yeah, we actually had a lot of really cool stuff happening just in this quarter alone. And then we also got to meet a lot of new folks in the community, um, a lot more hangouts and events and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool stuff. Um, so yeah, uh, I think that's pretty much our 2024. It was just a lot of features, a lot of building, a lot of code, and planning, getting Leaf back on track, which I think we have. Um, yeah. So what has left is our plans for next year. Um, I started off with the feature requests. So of course we are going to have a database, multi-database stuff. But I think the biggest thing for next year would be Leaf MVC 4. By the way, this update is only for Leaf MVC, not Leaf itself. So Leaf is going to stay at version 3. That's this library here. The main core library itself, Leaf, is going to stay at version 3. The reason we are not moving it to version 4 is there's pretty much no need to do so. Because we kind of have a very stable release and it sort of works perfectly. The only things that will change are some of the modules like Leaf MVC, core, and then the console. So yeah, this is pretty much stable. We have a functional mode and then all of the modules. So there's actually no need to change anything about Leaf. Um, if there anything, we'll be adding new features, we'll be fixing bugs and all of that. But then no change to the version. There will be like no major version. At least so far, that's what it looks like. So Leaf is not getting a major version, but Leaf MVC is. So that's Leaf itself with the MVC wrapper. So Leaf MVC, that's getting the version 4 update. I think there's this PR here in case you guys are interested and want to check it out or want to use it before it's released. There are a bunch of instructions here so you can check them out. Um, but yeah, so this is the plan is to get it done somewhere in January. So hopefully we should get Leaf MVC 4 in January. Hopefully before the end of January. Um, the really cool thing is we have a bunch of other things tied to Leaf MVC 4. And I haven't actually shown this yet because I started working on it just this week. But then we are planning a bunch of starter kits. So quite a while ago, Abdul started writing Leaf Origin, which um, which is a starter kit for Leaf MVC 3. Um, but then there were a few things that we messed up, especially because of the view engine support. So we sort of stashed this and it will be updated when Leaf MVC 4 is out. So once Leaf MVC 4 is out, we'll have Leaf Origin back with all of the updated stuff. So we'll no longer have those view engine complications and all of that stuff. So Leaf MVC 4 runs on Bootstrap, Blade, jQuery, has session management, 2FA, blah 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 blah. And once it's released, Abdul would be the best person to talk about it because this is literally him building this, and I don't want to spoil the fun. So yeah, we have Origin coming up once Leaf MVC 4 is done. And then I also started working on something myself, and I have a mess of tabs, so I can't find it. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me just run this. So I also started building a new starter kit with Leaf MVC, but this is with Leaf MVC 4. Let me just stop this and run the server. Right. So last week I actually talked about how we are changing the serve command. So if you sort of have Vite installed, it would run two servers concurrently. So yeah, that's another thing in Leaf MVC 4. I was able to actually make this backwards compatible. So Leaf MVC 3.9 will also have this feature, as I mentioned. Everything is just going back. So yeah, this is what you have, and this is what it looks like. So the name is Paper Plane, and it's going to be a Leaf MVC 4 starter kit. Basically comes with everything: billing, content stuff, mailing, different sections. So it actually has different page sections. Yeah, I think I kind of messed up a bit of the UI, but you get the idea. And it's going to be pretty modular, just like Leaf itself. So we give you a bunch of different page templates that you can swap out and stuff like that. For instance, the register page, we give you a bunch of templates like this, so you can just switch to whichever one you prefer and stuff like that. So yeah, this is Paper Plane, and it's going to be available once Leaf MVC is done. Um, yeah, there's actually so much it's going to come with. I have actually even forgotten the number of features that I listed in. Um, but basically, mailing, billing, payments, webhooks, and then it's going to have like a little blog for those that want stuff like that. I think examples. So it's going to have a bunch of example pages, functional e-commerce, blog with posts, admin panels, stuff like that. And everything will be just as modular as the stuff you see here. So you can always just take something, for instance, here, the hero, swap this out for a different hero section. So we're going to provide different templates for all of every single piece in Paper Plane. So yeah, that's another cool thing that's going to come out in 2025. Yeah, so the idea is we take away all of your both your front end pains and your back end pains. So common stuff like authentication, payments, um, mailing, all of that stuff will be done for you. And also some front ends. I mean, this is really customizable, so you can just swap out sections, do anything you want. And yeah, okay. So your front end would have a lot of front end sections for you, and then a lot of different back end sections for you. same story. So yeah, this will give you a lot more time, especially if you want to build stuff really, really fast. This would be for you. So this is powered by Blade, Tailwind, and Alpine JS. Um, yeah, we are missing the Livewire part, but Livewire is meant for Laravel. So yeah, it's basically just Blade, Tailwind, Alpine, and then 3 page sections here. So we have different. I'm still building a lot more. Um, but for now, I'm providing 2 or 3 of every single bit. So that's something you can look forward to. Um, this unfortunately may be just sponsorware, so available to only sponsors of Leaf because unfortunately we do need your money. As I mentioned, I've been working on Leaf full time, meaning I don't really work on any other stuff. So yeah, supporting Leaf is going to be supporting me to keep on working on Leaf full time. Yeah. But of course, I can't ask you to support Leaf for free. I mean, like without you getting anything in return. So Papa Plane is going to be sort of a reason for you to support Leaf, something like that. Um, yeah. So this, as I mentioned, it's another thing you can look forward to. It's Leaf MVC4, so it has everything Leaf MVC4 comes with. Um, the really simple setup over here. I had to pull back the config because I wanted to add a bunch of new Blade directives. So again, this is the new view engine support stuff. Um, once again, I think I talked about it about 2 weeks ago, but then I wasn't able to actually get to working for the demo. But it's working this time. You just teach Leaf how to use whatever engine you're using. The default is Leaf Blade. You configure it this way. So you actually just tell Leaf how to configure the engine for you, and then this calls render by default. If your engine doesn't have a render function, you can teach Leaf how to use it, and then you can extend the view engine like this. So in this case, I am adding directives, CSRF, method, and then a bunch of other stuff from Leaf 0, which is also another thing. Leaf 0 is another thing I was working on. It's supposed to be just different front end sections. So all of the front end sections you see in paper plane here are just compiled Leaf 0 pages. So I actually worked on a bunch of these earlier, and they're all going to be available here. So stuff like that. These will all be added to Leaf Blade. So you wouldn't have to extend just to add something as simple as CSRF because that would already be done, and a lot more. But this kind of shows how easy it is to extend the new view layer. Um, we always try to make stuff as backwards compatible as possible, so it looks a lot more like what you get in version 3. But then a few things here. This engine is returned from this instance, so you don't have to initialize it yourself. And it's all one instance of the same engine being passed around. So it's easy to extend. And the code doesn't run multiple times as it does currently. So that's like a really huge boost to performance and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty cool stuff in version 4. And then of course schema files, which are probably one of my favorite things. Um, yeah. So this will be released next year. Once again, I'm not actually sure when Paper Plane will be released, but then the goal is to get Leaf MVC4 released in January. So um, that's something you can look forward to. Besides that, I think the major things after Leaf MVC4 and um, updates to Leaf, I think the next major things would probably be just better database support, authentication, OAuth support, just so you can have um, a more dynamic, I don't know, database layer or something like that. Um, by the way, I am also building up some new libraries for paper plane, and those will also eventually be added to Leaf, like the billing support for Stripe and all of those. So yeah, we'll have some really new and cool modules next year. But yeah, as I mentioned, for now it's just sponsorware. So um, I would have to keep them closed for a little bit. But yeah, they'll eventually be added to Leave, and everyone will be able to use them. So um, yeah. Um, so I think that's a rundown of at least what I can show you for now. Stuff that will be hitting Leave, new modules, um, more videos, better examples of the documentation, Leaf MVC4, better database support, OAuth support, um, and then I think more third-party integrations. So integrations where third-party systems that people regularly use. Um, yeah, I think that's another thing we are looking at. So huge third-party support. Um, I don't know of any services yet. I can't think of any services yet, but that's something we are really going to look at. Maybe basic stuff. Does anyone even use Sentry on the back end? I don't know. I actually don't know. But yeah, third party support would be big, like really, really huge for very common use cases. So billing would be the first of those. So integrations with Stripe, Lemon Squeezy, Paystack, stuff like that. Right. Um, by the way, if you are not already supporting Leaf, you can do so on GitHub sponsors or Open Collective. You can just click on the sponsor button and your sponsorship would go a long way to help us. So please do that if you're not already supporting Leaf. Um, yeah. So I think this is pretty much our roadmap for next year. It's just going to be finishing up on a lot of modules. So we're getting a lot of, I wouldn't call them new features because you can already sort of do them with Leaf. It's just a little more annoying. Something like Stripe. Yeah. So a direct integration would be not a new feature, but something to make your lives a lot easier. Um, and yeah, we are still going to keep everything modular. So you won't have anything you don't need. You don't have to learn anything you don't need. So um, if you need any new feature, you can just head over to the documentation, search for the particular feature you need, and then read the documentation for only that. You don't actually have to cram the whole framework into your head. Um, that's something we are going to keep. That's not changing. No matter how many features we add, we are going to keep them modular. So you don't actually have to worry about that. Okay. And I think we still have a few beta. I think this is in beta. Roles permissions are in beta. Um, I think Swole is still in beta. I am not so sure about that, but I think it is. Yeah, it's still in beta. So next year we are planning to get a lot of these out of beta. Have like a stable version 1 instead of a version 0. Hi Ravi. Hey. Okay. So I think the SWU support is still very limited right now. Um, but next year we're going to look at making a stable, so a version 1 of AIM server, and then also integrations with stuff like Roadrunner. React PHP. I think I showed a React PHP module here, which I actually never really had time to finish up, but it's something we are looking at. So if any of you already have questions about this, um, yeah, stuff like this will be popping up next year. So I think once Leaf MVC 4 is done, there will be a lot more bandwidth for all of these. So yeah, sounds like a good year. Sounds like a really, really good year. Um, and of course, we'll need a lot of your support, um, whether code or donations, helping with the documentation, anything at all. Reporting bugs. Actually, that's huge. Reporting bugs is really huge because it helps us fix any issues that pop up, and then simply just sharing Leaf with your friends on Twitter, anything at all. Um, right. So yeah, that's pretty much our roadmap. I will actually create a new board for this. Leaf uses GitHub projects to manage our stuff. A lot of them are public, so you can check them out yourself. But I'll be creating a new board for the 2025 roadmap. Um, yeah, and you can always just view them here. I think I still have a few notes for myself over here. I don't know if they are publicly. Yeah, I think they are public, so you can view them. Yeah. So there will be one more for 2025. You can always follow our roadmap along with us. We'll have more hangouts and more reports. I don't know if you guys have been receiving our Substack newsletters, but then we also have some of those. So yeah, we're going to keep you updated throughout the whole year on whatever happens. So that's it for our year in our year, and then what you guys can expect for 2025. Um, yeah. So if you guys have any questions, you can just drop them in the comments or on Discord. Actually, on Discord. Yeah, doesn't look like there's anything new here. But you guys can just drop them in, and I would answer them. Um, Otherwise, I would be ending up. I'll be ending the stream pretty soon. Um, oh, I have to give a big shout out to Desmond. Desmond has been a major contributor. He's been helping a lot with our donations, keeping Leaf running almost single-handedly. So a big shout out to Terry. Yeah, your help has been really big. So thanks a lot for that. And I don't know if there are any questions. It doesn't look like there are any more questions. I'll just end the stream here. It's a bit early, but there will be no more streams before the end of the year. So happy New Year to all of you guys, and stay safe. So I'm going to add this roadmap so you guys can follow along for everything we've talked about. And paper plane, please pre-order. Please pre-order. It will help us big time. Yeah. So I'll just end it here. Thanks a lot for joining, guys. And if there's anything more, just hit me up on Discord. I'll be online. I'll be online for a bit more, so just hit me up and I'll answer any questions. Okay. Catch you later, guys.